We often say that big plays are made because one athlete reacted faster than another. And it is true that the ability to quickly react is a skill that is critical to the success of an athlete. But reaction can be more accurately described as recognition. In other words, athletes react only after they have recognized the need to react. While there are many things that athletes key on and must recognize in order to react, we believe that the three key stimuli that trigger athletes' reactions are colors, sounds, and movements. Our first drill for reaction is a game that we pluck straight from the playground. Burnout is a game that we love to use at the beginning of workouts because it immediately wakes the athlete up, forces them to be alert, and prepares their brain for the rest of the workout. Burnout is a reaction exercise that works off movement. Here we have Jake square off with Taboris. Jake extends his hands palms down and places them on Taboris' hands, which are palms up. In this setup, Taboris is on offense and Jake is on defense. The goal is for Taboris to quickly move his hands out from under Jake's and to slap down on top of Jake's hands before he can move them out of the way. If Taboris is able to connect, then he is awarded 1 point and gets to remain on offense. If Jake is quick enough to move his hands out of the way and to avoid the hit, then he gets to put his hands on the bottom and go on the offensive. Players may only score points when they are on offense. Also, if the defensive player gets a little jumpy and moves his hands in anticipation of a slap from the offensive player, and the offensive player never moves, then the offensive player is awarded 1 point. This game can also be played in the gunslinger mode from the hips as shown here. It should be noted that in the true playground form of this game, the winning athlete gets a free slap at the hands of the loser. While we don't necessarily advocate this practice, it definitely adds some extra incentive to winning and ensures that at least one of your athletes' minds will be totally alert for the rest of the workout. Our next exercise focuses on recognition of sound to trigger the athlete's reaction. Taboris is holding a single tennis ball and Jake stands about 2 feet away in an athletic ready position. When Taboris says ready, Jake will close his eyes. Taboris may now drop the ball at any time. As soon as Jake hears the ball hit the ground, he immediately opens his eyes and moves to catch the ball before it hits the ground a second time. To increase the level of difficulty, Taboris holds a ball in either hand. Now, rather than knowing where he can expect the ball to be located when he opens his eyes, Jake will have to quickly scan 2 areas to find his target. Similar to the last drill, Dalton and Rusty are working on reaction off of a sound. In this drill, Dalton will begin in a ready position with his eyes closed. Rusty will begin the drill by throwing a tennis ball against a wall. When Dalton hears the ball hit the wall, then and only then may he open his eyes and begin sprinting. His goal is to catch the ball as close as possible to the line we have marked. As Dalton gets better at this drill, we will start moving the line closer to the wall, moving his starting position further from Rusty, or making Dalton start facing backwards. One of the best features of this style of training is that as the athlete improves, it is always possible to tweak the drill just to make it a little harder and a little more challenging. This ensures that workouts never get stale and your athletes always stay interested. The drop and grab is similar to the second exercise in this section, except that it works off the recognition of movement rather than sound. Becca is positioned a couple of feet in front of Taboris, who is holding a ball just above her field of vision. As soon as the ball is dropped, Becca must try to catch it before it hits the ground. Notice that we have instructed Becca to begin by looking at Taboris' chin and not at the ball. This forces her to use her peripheral vision to detect the movement of the ball. Also notice that Becca is always in a bent knee ready position that will allow her to quickly move to the ball. Just like every other exercise in this video series, this drop and grab drill is excellent for athletes competing in most any sport, whether it's a soccer player like Becca or a baseball and football player like Jake. Set up the same way as the last drill, this time we will have our athletes react off color recognition. We will start by using 2 different colored balls, one red and one blue. Taboris tells the athlete which color ball must be caught and which color must be allowed to drop to the ground. In this demonstration, Taboris has instructed Jake to catch only the blue ball. As the balls are dropped, Jake must catch only the blue ball and allow the red ball to drop to the ground. Jake is not permitted to catch, touch, or even move towards the red ball. This drill is best done by using 10 balls, 5 of each color, and counting how many balls the athlete can react correctly to. Once the athlete can consistently get 10 out of 10 correct, a third color may be added to the mix. Continuing to build off the last drill, Mallory and I will now demonstrate a drop and hit exercise. In this drill, I'm using only red and blue balls. I've placed a red cone to Mallory's left and a blue cone to her right. When a ball drops into Mallory's field of vision, she must quickly recognize the color of the ball and then hit the ball in the direction of the appropriately colored cone. This is an excellent drill for athletes that compete in team sports like football, soccer, and basketball, where color recognition is so important. During competition, athletes in these sports must be able to quickly process similar information. For example, the red jersey of an opponent must be something that the athlete knows to quickly react away from, while the blue jersey of a teammate must immediately send another signal. While you may not be able to assemble a dozen or so additional athletes to help recreate this situation for your son or daughter, a bag of colored balls works just as well. As Mallory becomes better at this exercise, we would then add a third colored ball to the mix that she would be instructed to catch before it hits the ground. The turn and catch game is one of the favorites of the athletes we train. We start by placing our athlete and coach at about 15 yards of separation with the athlete's back to the coach. The coach then winds up and throws a ball at the center of the athlete's back. At the moment the ball leaves his hand, the coach yells "now," and the athlete quickly turns around. As the athlete turns, she must immediately locate the ball in the air and move her body into position to catch it. If the athlete is successful in catching the ball, then she moves one step closer to the coach and the next ball is thrown. The athlete continues to advance to the coach until she fails to make a catch. The goal is to end up as close as possible to the coach. For this drill, we are, for obvious reasons, using a lightweight, brightly colored ball. As the athlete gets more adept in locating and catching the ball, you may begin substituting smaller balls or begin throwing them at higher speeds. However, we do recommend that you continue to use a ball that is soft or light enough that it will not cause serious injury if the athlete does get hit. If we use some of the same concepts from other drills, we can further enhance the benefits of the turn and catch drill. Here I have assigned a command or task to each color ball being used. The common commands that we are using are: blue balls must be caught, yellow balls must be batted down, and red balls must be avoided. When Mallory turns around, she does not have the luxury of knowing exactly what she will be doing with the ball being hurled at her chest. Now she must not only locate the object in the air and move her body into position, but must also then quickly identify the color of the ball and mentally compute the proper task for that color. This is not an easy drill, but it is awesome at training the body and brain to be quick. Remember, it is more often than not the mental aspect of knowing what to do on the field that allows some athletes to play at a quicker pace than others. Oftentimes during competition, an athlete is required to leap into the air. Now, obviously, when an athlete is airborne, he or she will be unable to make any subsequent changes in motion because their feet are no longer in contact with the ground. But as soon as their feet do come back in contact with the ground, they will need to be ready to instantly move to catch back up with the flow of the game. To simulate this situation, we have placed Cody in a position between two cones spaced 6 yards apart with our instructor in front. Cody will begin the exercise by leaping into the air. At the moment just before his feet return to the ground, the instructor will point to either his left or his right. Cody must react to the motion of the instructor's arm and sprint past the appropriate cone. Notice that as Cody is returning to the ground, he is already positioning his body in a reaction position. This is absolutely necessary in order to achieve the quickest possible response to the instructor's command. By putting himself in this position, Cody is ready to respond to quick changes in the flow of the game. A variation of this exercise would be for the coach to say left or right rather than pointing. Yet another stimuli that athletes must recognize and react to is one of a sensory nature. In this case, I'm standing behind Cody and tap him on the right or left shoulder at the moment before his feet hit the ground. Cody must react to the direction of the tap. Variations would include having the athlete react in the opposite direction of the tap, or to have them react off the second or third tap as shown here. Going back to our concept of color recognition, here I'm holding a red ball in one hand and a blue ball in the other. The athlete does not know which ball is in which hand. Before the athlete jumps into the air, I will designate one of the colors as the hot color. In this case, red has been designated as the hot color. Just before the athlete's feet hit the ground, I will toss one ball to the left and one ball to the right. The athlete must identify in which direction the red ball was thrown and then sprint in that direction. In this final reaction drill, we incorporate several different skill development techniques. The athlete begins with his back to our instructor. The instructor tosses one of 3 colored balls into the air above the athlete's head and gives a now call. When the athlete hears this command, he must turn and leap, catch the ball in the air, and then throw the ball at the appropriately colored cone before his feet hit the ground. As athletes become more skilled in this drill, we will begin shifting the placement of the cones while their back is turned, or by spreading the cones to wider positions at different angles from the athlete to increase difficulty. Of all the drills in this section, this one is by far the most difficult and will only be possible after many of the easier exercises have been mastered. But an athlete that is able to perform this training exercise will find it easier to relax and focus during complicated moments in games. The ability to do that is a trait that helps separate the mediocre athletes from the miraculous.